going to be talking about our sink or swim candidates for each NHL team. That is going to be in the Canadian division. Now, one thing to note about the Canadian division is that each of these teams are not just playoff hopefuls, but I think each one of these teams sees themselves in a normal division alignment.
Each?
Okay, not each. Sorry, Ottawa being a little bit of an after thought there. No disrespect for what they're doing. Think they're building really the right way, but 6 of the 7 Canadian teams.
Just real quick, you may notice the Canadians logo on my mug here. If Cam had a logo on his, it would be a Senators logo. So I just really quickly want to address that, no matter which team you're representing as a fan, we hope that this will be a podcast where you feel like it's represented well. It gets pretty tiring, I think, to, be listening to coverage of one form or another, and it feels like if, if it's not specifically tailored to your team, you feel like, maybe not always a fair representation. So we're going to give that our best go. If you feel like we haven't, feel free to let us know in the comments or whatever. But
yeah, this is going to be pretty intense, and so I think there's going to be some pretty fierce rivalries. I think there could be some disappointments in terms of playoffs, and I just really think that it's going to be fun to get into the sink or swim to see what can make the difference for each one of these teams coming up. So considering their tax situation or their destination, I'd love to see it. So we are going to take just a short little break. We're going to come back and we're going to segue from one Danish player on a Canadian team, cross the traditional Western to Eastern Conference, and focus on another team with another Danish player in Toronto. So we're going to back to you after the break.
I have no idea who you're talking about.
Frederick Anderson.
Oh, okay. So was that a spoiler of who your sink or swim player is?
No, I was going to throw it at you and ask is
right.
Frederick Anderson your sink or swim player?
No. Because I would say that, again, you may be watching the whole video or you might be just here for a clip, but something I referenced before is how narratives change on players and ups and downs, and how I don't believe that always reflects their talent level.
Yeah.
I still see Frederick Anderson as a very elite goaltender in this league.
I would agree.
He's been top 5 in Vezina voting like 2 times in the last couple of years, and I believe he's still that player.
He's put in work for that team.
Yeah, and he's young. Like he's gonna be. I think it would be very silly to suggest that he has regressed for no reason.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to be very good for them this year.
Yeah, just a bit of a shadow, really, of the lack of playoff. I wouldn't even say execution by Anderson, but as a team, right? Like, there's Toronto fans have something to be excited for, and sometimes it's tempting to have a scapegoat or something like that. Yeah. And so Frederick Anderson has, by some, been made out to be that. So I'm just wondering.
I dare say, though, that I think Leafs fans are getting better at not scapegoating as much.
Yeah.
I think so because they're seeing... it's not like Gardiner has had a big role in the Hurricanes, but
no,
people like Gardiner, Kadri, Kessel go on to have success. And so we have a big Leafs fan in our group chat, and I think he's a good temperature gauge of where Leafs fans are at, because he rides the highs and the lows. And, I've been hearing that kind of thing from him, and I see it on hockey Twitter a little bit too. So I haven't really heard many people talking much about him as Anderson as a scapegoat, and if they are, they should stop, because he is so good.
Yeah.
Like any team in the league other than Jets, Habs, Panthers, and Lightning would be lucky to have Frederick Anderson, and they'd be improved by having.
Yeah, which I mean, we're getting ahead of ourselves to an episode we could have further down the road, but it could be a math problem with without a flat cap because he's got 1 year left on his contract.
No, I don't know. I don't think I see him being a Leaf after this year. And I don't think that'll come across very strong to Leafs fans. I saw so many of them scheming.
I don't think it will be because of his play that he will not be on the team. I think, not his play in a negative sense, but he's going to outprice himself likely for this market. So.
And I don't think he'd be very motivated to take a discount.
Likely not.
Because as a goalie, you kind of got to, what's the saying? Make hay when the sun shines. As a goalie, you have to get paid.
Yeah.
When you're in your prime.
Yeah.
So he's going to get paid somewhere. This is an aside to...
I was just going to say, Keith Kincaid, for example. Make his hay when the sun shines.
Man, I saw that guy play in the AHL last year, and I was like, oh, he's bad. He embarrassed himself in the AHL.
It's got to be tough, because, we, as fans, should only be able to go, or willing to go so far, but... there's something between respecting people for the career that they've got and calling a spade, right?
The man is a spade.
Sorry, you were talking about sunshine, and we were going to go somewhere else without.
Yeah.
Aside.
So I have another aside before I get to my sink or swim candidate on the Leafs. I mentioned this to you and the rest of our group chat, and it was not well received. But a Dougie Hamilton, Frederik Andersen swap would have been so good for both teams. And I say that because at that point Braden Holtby was still a projected UFA.
That's true.
And he's a Toronto boy. He loves the Raptors.
Yeah.
He is good friends with Dallas Green of City and Color, who's a Toronto native.
Oh, really?
Dallas Green sung at his wedding.
Wow.
Deep dive for you. Don't know why I know that. But I do.
Important intel.
So yes, but Dougie Hamilton is a stud, and this isn't very productive because the opportunity for this has passed. That would have been so good for both teams.
Yeah.
But that does lead me into my sink or swim candidate, who plays the same position that Dougie Hamilton does, which is right defense.
Oh.
TJ Brody.
Okay.
I don't think I'm wrong in saying that TJ Brody has never played, let alone succeeded in high-pressure hockey. He has never been a real pillar of a defensive unit.
Yeah.
I think he may have had some decent minutes playing with Giordano.
Yeah, that was who he's most paired for, and to kind of support what you're saying is that away from Giordano, the other pairings of minutes in the hundreds and 80 minutes per pairing is probably too low for a sample size.
Right.
But his the team save percentage without him playing, or with him on the ice but not playing with Giordano, plummets quite a bit. So by almost 3 percentage points in any other pairing cases, some really small sample size, the team save percentage was 88.9%. But again, that was a really low extreme case, but I'll prop up what you're saying.
Yeah, so the good news is he's going to be playing with a defenseman who I would say is as good as a recent Norris winner, Giordano, in Morgan Riley.
Yeah,
I
respect.
Love Morgan Riley.
He's a very good player.
He's incredible, and in a bit of a situation where he had a down year, but man, I think that he deserves a lot of respect. And playing
Well, down year because he got his ankles broken by Connor McDavid. Can't wait for that all-Canadian division.
So, yeah, I think that the good news is he's going to be playing with Morgan Riley.
Yeah.
The bad news is he's going to be in a situation where he will probably be more exposed and have more pressure on him than he's ever had in his career. And I know he's not a bad player. I know he's not going to embarrass himself. But I don't know that he's going to thrive. And so I have the Leafs finishing anywhere between first and I'd go down to fifth in the Canadian division.
Wow. Okay.
Because, and I just say that because I don't think this should be shocking to Leafs fans, but they're a team who can just fall apart. And in a setting where it's going to be playoff style hockey, where you're going to be playing, what if the Leafs are just bad matchups for a lot of deep physical teams?
Yeah.
In Montreal and Calgary and Vancouver, and then teams who can maybe be in the same world as them in terms of top 6 talent in Edmonton and Winnipeg. I don't think they're going to fall apart, but it would be foolish to recognize the potential. And I think if it goes bad, it goes real bad.
Oh.
And having something like Brody be just incompatible with Riley would be a huge domino to fall in things going real bad.
Yeah.
But one thing that would go really far in terms of that not happening, and I'm not saying I think that's likely, I'm just saying it's possible, and the chance it happens isn't insignificant, you know? Something that would go a long way in making sure that doesn't happen is if TJ Brody just clicks with Morgan Riley, and they have, for the first time since maybe a Phaneuf Caberlet pairing, too legit, you know what I mean? I don't know how far back you have to go to when they have a legitimate first pairing.
I don't know if a McCabe Caberlet might be qualifying.
Yeah.
They did deal a lot of damage to President Cup winning or President's Trophy winning Ottawa Senators back in the early 2000s.
That's such a good example because it's sort of a shutdown guy and a offensive kind of dynamo. If they haven't,
we're not saying they're the same players, but there's
the archetypes they fill.
Yeah, more or less. I'll get on board with that.
It's a pairing of almost opposite complementary.
There we go. That's what I can get on board with.
So to me, TJ Brody, if he clicks, I don't see it. The odds of the wheels falling off is so low.
Yeah.
But if he clashes, he'd be an incredible partner for Jake Muzzin. But then you still have no top pairing right defenseman, and in a deep competitive playoff style Canadian division, I could see that spelling trouble. So I think odds are high. If I had to bet on a team finishing first, it would be the Leafs. But they also have a lower floor, I think, than some other teams who would be competing with them for number one.
Wow.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
And a guy like Brody, to me, is kind of the sink or swim guy.
Yeah. Well, I think some of the weight that Brody could shoulder could also be emphasized by, this isn't surprising anybody at this point, but a lot of the additions that the Leafs picked up didn't increase the overall foot speed of the team. And I think we're all aware of that by now. Guys like Thornton, Simmons, and Bogosian, they all bring a different dimension, which I think is really important. That dimension is not speed. That dimension is character. That dimension is ethic or physicality. I think all three of those players bring a varying degree of that. right, we can remember a guy like Ray Ferraro saying during the Columbus series, and even the Boston series before that, where, right, like there was chirps flying all the way over from the benches in CBJ. You wouldn't have to raise your voice that much because there's no fans in the stands.
Yeah.
In Boston, that there's a lot of chirping going on towards the Leafs bench and just no response. So I think those elements are good, but yeah, that lower foot speed I think is going to put a little more pressure on the defense.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to contend that Toronto can outscore their problems during the regular season. I mentioned that. I think for a regular season point of view, Toronto will be okay when when the whistles, I guess, seem to get put away, right? It almost is like there's a different sport in the playoffs. There's not really any league like it where the fabric of the game seems to change so much. Toronto could benefit from some of these additions, but if Brody is not the piece that clicks there, then I actually agree with you. We hadn't discussed this beforehand, but TJ Brody's also going to be my sink or swim candidate because, furthermore, I think that he's going to have to be there to erase the memory of what Tyson Barrie wasn't. And so there's going to be kind of this added pressure because there's so much more term that TJ Brody's been given. So he's got some more leash maybe in order to make this work, but like Toronto's in that window where they're wanting to actually like, we're going for it, right? We're here to win, and so I think Brody's going to carry a lot of weight. And I'm not saying like he's gone from Calgary to Toronto, so there's clearly he's experienced with the Canadian media. Toronto media is a different beast. I would contend it's not as crazy as Montreal. I think Montreal is pretty ruthless, actually.
I would say that in terms of what the players experience, it's probably pretty similar because while the sum total of the insanity of Habs fans and media is probably greater, it's split into two languages, and so, but Leafs are not.
True.
You know what I mean?
True.
So it's all coming at everyone, you know?
Excellent.
A lot of the loopy Habs French media, the way I said that could almost sound like I'm disrespecting like French people or the French language. Not at all. I love the French Canadian heritage and history and culture. But a lot of the media
seem to pull
nuts.
They don't seem to pull any punches. They seem to have a lot of low blows because you can translate this stuff. And I'm not going to give specific examples. We're not there. We're here to talk about the Leafs. But if we go back to TJ Brody's okay? Where actually not TJ Brody, but just the Leafs defense in general. I warned you I'd use this term before. If you've been listening to our whole pod here about Edmonton, I said that up front they have the illusion of depth. I think Toronto on the back end, on the defensive side, they've got the illusion of depth. They've got Abogo now. They've got now Muzzin and Riley, good players. They've got Sandin. They've got Liljegren.
Dermott, Justin Hall.
And Leafs fans would really want me to point out Mikko Lehtinen. A lot of people say that he's one of the best defensemen outside of the NHL. And by the time I looked at this stat, this was just a week ago when I'd been doing some of our pod notes, he'd had 16 points in 15 games as a defenseman. So, clearly he is a positive factor. So we will see how all those elements combine to on-ice success, right? Because in theory, there's some depth there, and it'd be good for the Leafs to have in a pretty intense season.
Do you know if he can play on the right side?
Mikko Lehtinen?
Because I know...
No clue. I've never seen him play on the
I just asked because he plays in the KHL.
Yeah.
And in Russian hockey, defensemen are expected to play on both sides.
Oh, okay.
So that'd be interesting.
That'd definitely be a pro.
Yeah,
So,
big time.
What's kind of interesting, I'm going to bring this up just for the memes a little bit, but what I found interesting that was brought up somewhat recently is that Jack Hahn, he used to work with Sheldon Keefe in the AHL. He had let slip just recently that he wouldn't be surprised if Keefe entertained the idea of rolling out 3D and 2 forwards at one point. So, yeah,
What?
having 3D and 2 forwards. So, I mean, maybe you're maximizing, like we said, Leafs have 4 forwards that all deserve to be on top line. So, do you just really pump up their minutes? And I don't know. I don't think Toronto fans want the gimmicks. And the bells and whistles, I think they want to see them play. And like Keith has been I think he's been a good players coach. He's pretty forward thinking. Yeah. That we'll see. I think it's a bit of a meme now. They could definitely try an experiment, but in a shortened season, I don't know how much you want to stick with that if it is or isn't working. Yeah. How much you want to invest into that. And I think just one thing to remind ourselves is that today, by the way, is the anniversary of the Mike Babcock firing.
Wow.
Yeah, that felt like years ago. So here we are filming on that day, and Sheldon Keefe, if you took what Mike Babcock said without his accent and looked at what Sheldon Keefe said, just transcript by transcript, it was pretty verbatim, the message that he was saying that Sheldon Keefe needed more effort, more defensive commitment, more physicality from this team, and so they just had a new voice to kind of say a lot of the same things. And I think now that Dubas and Keefe are friends, Dubas has really prioritized honing in on some of those elements that a Brody, Bogosian, Thornton, and Wayne Simmons can all bring. So I think those are really positive things. So I don't know how much credit there is to the gimmick. I don't think it's going to happen in a shortened season. And then again, there are things where people change their strategies suddenly, and it revolutionizes the league, right? We've seen examples of that before. Time will tell if this is one of them, especially since teams are more and more, let's get the lead, and let's just shut down the other team. I mean, if you've got the athleticism on the back end to do that, maybe. I think the best defense is a good offense. I think that's what Toronto and teams like Edmonton have been employing the last little while. They've got good defensive pieces, but any problem that occurs, I think that they can outscore it, and I think that's the best hope in the regular season. But there are some really interesting pieces on the back end. We're going to see what comes into fruition there. But Jack Hahn was just bringing the smoke.
That's wild. That
it's crazy thought. So.
Yeah, man, that would absolutely be. I guess it's a way to. As a team, they have strengths and they have weaknesses, obviously. Yeah. And their left side on defense is stupid.
It's pretty rich.
And it would be a way to get those guys ice time.
It's true.
So.
Yeah. And think of Guy Boucher, someone who has had immense success very short success in Tampa Bay and Ottawa, deploying his 1-3-1 system. But once the league catches up to what you're doing, and they know how to solve it, I think. So it could be worth the fact that no one else has invested any time playing against a 2-3. It could catch the league by surprise, and you could run with that until you get figured out. But I think they should just outscore their problems. So kind of interesting to me that neither of us picked someone like Kerfoot. I guess they've got enough offensive acumen there that it's not much of an issue. But I think as a Maple Leafs fan, if maybe just isolating a Kadri trade, they'd like to see Kerfoot step up his game. Not that his game was bad, but like he hasn't quite meshed to the extent that they'd like for Kadri return. So it'd be nice to see him have a nice little season, but we will see how it goes.
I guess I just see them having so many guys in their bottom six who could just be a little bit of a revelation. That it's like I could see Kerfoot straight up just a situation where, like, if he just didn't exist, like if you just subtracted him from this team, where it made no difference. If like, and I don't feel like it would be that unrealistic that Jimmy VC has a little bit of a renaissance, and like Nicholas Robertson is flourishes a little bit. I think Wayne Simmons has juice left. Even like Mikheyev, I think like he could be.
I think he's a good piece.
I think there's a world where Robertson plays up on the second line and Mikheyev is really, really, really good on the, like. There's just so many worlds where it's like if you subtract Kerfoot from this team, it makes no difference. So that said, like he could be one of those revelations as well and be a huge addition, but I just didn't feel comfortable. That's why I didn't pick any of their forwards, because there are just so many who, if they like, so many guys who can fill in the gaps.
So not to aggro Vancouver fans, but that pretty similar train of thought what I felt about Virtanen. So again, he's incredibly talented, but just like very streaky player. So I thought that was pretty fascinating. So